Hey everyone, welcome back to Club AI Lab. Today's episode is one of those conversations that I think we all feel in the background, but really sit down and unpack properly. You know that strange mix of excitement and anxiety people have right now about automation, AI, and everything that's changing at full speed? Well, it's not new. We have been here before, many times, and that's exactly what I want to dive into today. We are going to talk about why history keeps repeating itself, whenever a new technology shows up, why humans never actually run other problems, and how every wave of innovation pushes us toward higher level challenges instead of replacing us altogether. And then, toward the end, we'll connect this to something bigger: how our governments, policies, and systems need to evolve with this acceleration so they don't become the bottleneck in the next stage of human progress. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive in. So there's this cycle humanity can't seem to break. First, we are afraid of something new, and then we resist it. Next, we adopt it, and then we become completely dependent on it. Then, here's the part we always forget: it creates a whole new set of problems we never saw coming. So, we did it with the printing press, we did it with electricity, we did it with the internet, and right now, we are doing it with AI. The question is, why does this keep happening? And more importantly, what does understanding this pattern tell us about what comes next? What we are experiencing with artificial intelligence isn't unprecedented. It's part of a pattern that's been playing out for centuries. Every time technology disrupts existing systems, we go through the same emotional arc. We panic, we predict doom, and then eventually we adapt. But here's what makes this moment different: the speed. The technologies that used to take generations to reshape society now do it in years. And that acceleration is exposing something critical, not about technology, but about us, about how we organize ourselves, how we govern, and whether the systems we have built can keep up with the problems we keep creating. So today we are going to break down the real pattern, not the one about AI replacing jobs or making us obsolete, but the one about how humans evolve problems and not solutions, and why that changes everything about how we should be thinking about kind of this moment. So let's just start with something that fundamentally changed the world: the printing press. Before the mid 1400s, books were hand copied by scribes. This meant knowledge was expensive, rare, and controlled by a very small group of people, mostly religious institutions and the wealthy elite. Then Gutenberg comes along with his press, and suddenly you can produce hundreds of copies of a book in the time it used to take to make just one. Sounds great, right? More knowledge for everyone. But here's what actually happened: the Catholic Church lost its monopoly on interpreting a scripture. Political pamphlets spread revolutionary ideas faster than authorities could suppress them. The Protestant Reformation kicks off, wars are fought, governments fall, and within a century, the entire power structure of Europe had been rewritten. The printing press didn't just make books cheaper, it redistributed power, and power doesn't redistribute quietly. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, same pattern, different technology. Factories and mechanization were going to destroy livelihoods. And they did. Textile workers, blacksmiths, artisans who had spent lifetimes perfecting their craft suddenly found machines doing their work faster and cheaper. There were riots. People literally smashed machines. But here's what we forget: those fears were both right and wrong. Yes, specific jobs disappeared, but the Industrial Revolution didn't end work, it transformed it. It created factory jobs, engineering roles, logistics networks, global trade systems, and it pulled millions out of subsistence farming and into cities. It raised living standards in ways that would have seemed like science fiction a generation earlier. The problem wasn't that machines replace humans. The problem was that humans had to figure out what comes next. And during that transition, real people suffered real consequences. Then electricity. Before widespread electrification, domestic work was brutal. Washing clothes took hours, keeping food fresh was a constant battle, and heating and lighting required physical labor. According to historical economists, the average household spent an enormous portion of its time just on basic survival tasks. So, electricity didn't just make life easier, it fundamentally changed what was possible. It freed up time, it enabled new industries, and it made factories run 24/7. So, it created suburbs because people could live farther from work. And it spawned entirely new fields like electrical engineering, telecommunications, and entertainment. So, but it also created new problems like energy dependence, infrastructure vulnerability, environmental impact, power grid failures that could cripple entire regions, and then the internet. We all lived through this one, so remember the fear. The internet was going to destroy privacy, erode social bonds, spread misinformation, eliminate retail jobs, and make everything superficial. And you know what? All of that kind of happened. But it also created $1 trillion industries, connected billions of people, and democratized information, enabled remote work, sparked new forms of art and culture, and fundamentally rewired how humans collaborate. So here's the pattern: old problem, new tool. Old problem disappears, and new tool creates bigger opportunities. And bigger opportunities create bigger problems. We didn't solve everything, we just leveled up the boss fight. And the critical insight is this: humans never run out of problems, we just evolve into new ones. Because every solution we create opens up possibilities we couldn't even imagine before. And those possibilities come with their own challenges. Like the printing press solved information scarcity, but it also created information wars. Industrialization solved production limits, meanwhile, it created labor upheaval and environmental strain. Electricity solved energy excess, and it also created grid dependence and new infrastructural fragility. The internet solved communication barriers, but it also created attention economies and digital surveillance. This isn't pessimism, it's how progress actually works. We don't reach some final state where everything is solved. We trade old problems for new ones. And hopefully, the new problems are ones we'd rather have. So, let's talk about what AI is actually doing. Because the fear is always the same. Automation is going to eliminate human purpose, machines will do everything, and will be obsolete. But that's not how automation has ever worked. Here's the thing: automation eliminates repetitive tasks, not human purpose. And when you look at workforce studies over the past several decades, the pattern is clear. Every time we automate routine tasks, humans don't disappear, they shift to higher order work. Think about what happened with spreadsheets. Before Excel, companies had rooms full of people doing calculations by hand. Accountants spend their days adding columns of numbers, checking figures, manually balancing books, and then spreadsheets automated all of that. Did accountants disappear? No. They started doing analysis instead of arithmetic. They moved from execution to judgment. Instead of asking, what are the numbers? They started asking, what do the numbers mean? The nature of accounting changed from data processing to data interpretation. Or take legal research. 30 years ago, junior lawyers spent years doing document review, searching through case files, looking for relevant precedents. But now, AI can scan thousands of documents in seconds. So, are lawyers obsolete? No, they're doing different work. The AI handles the search, the lawyer handles the judgment, like what's relevant, what's the strategic implication, or how to craft an argument. The automation didn't eliminate legal work, it eliminated legal drudgery. This is the shift we keep seeing, from execution to judgment to orchestration. When routine tasks get automated, humans move up the chain. We become conductors instead of instrumentalists. We define the strategy, set the parameters, interpret the results, and make the calls that require context, ethics, creativity, and nuance. And here's why that matters: AI is really good at patterns. is exceptional at processing vast amounts of information, finding correlations, executing defined tasks at a scale, but it can't do the things that make humans uniquely valuable. It can't navigate ambiguity the way we can. It doesn't understand context the way we do. It can't make ethical judgments that balance competing values. It doesn't have intuition born from lived experience. It can't recognize when the rules should be broken or when the standard approach won't work. According to research from places like Stanford's AI Index and MIT, as automation increases, demand for certain skills actually goes up. Critical thinking, complex problem solving, interpersonal communication, creativity, and emotional intelligence. These aren't soft skills. They are core human capabilities that become more valuable, not less, as routine work gets automated. So here's the point: AI doesn't replace humans, it replaces humans' unproductiveness. It takes the repetitive, the tedious, the pattern based work that, frankly, we are not great at and don't enjoy and handles that. What it gives us back is time and cognitive bandwidth to focus on the parts of work that actually require human judgment. And this doesn't mean there is no disruption. There absolutely is. People who build careers around routine execution will need to adapt. Industries will restructure, and the transition will be uncomfortable for many. But the shape of work changes, not the existence of work. And here's the deeper point: every technological shift creates more complexity, not less, more data to interpret, more systems to coordinate, more edge cases that don't fit the algorithm, more strategic decisions about what to automate and how. AI makes certain tasks easier, which means we can tackle bigger problems. And bigger problems require more human oversight, more collaboration, more of the messy, complicated thinking that machines can't replicate. We are not becoming obsolete. We are becoming essential in different ways. Now, here's where things get interesting. Because if human problems evolve with technology, then the systems we have built to manage those problems, like laws, governments, institutions, have to evolve too. And that's where we are stuck. Most of our modern governmental frameworks were built for a different era. They were designed during the industrial age, when change was measurable in decades, not years, when you could predict what the world would look like in 10 years and build policy around that prediction. That world doesn't exist anymore. We are living with exponential technologies: AI, biotechnology, quantum computing, and they are exposing the lag in our institutions. Regulations take years to draft and pass. Education systems take decades to reform. Tax policy is built on employment models that are already outdated. Meanwhile, technology moves faster every year. The gap between what's possible and what's governed keeps widening. So let's look at history again, because this has happened before. The printing press didn't just disrupt information, it forced a complete rethinking of authority: who controls truth, who decides what can be published, and the Catholic Church tried to maintain control through censorship and the index of forbidden books. It didn't work. Eventually, entirely new frameworks emerged: copyright law, freedom of the press, and secular education. The institutions had to evolve because the old ones couldn't manage the new reality. Same with the Industrial Revolution. The rise of factories and mass labor created conditions that existing legal systems weren't built to handle. Child labor was widespread, working conditions were brutal. There were no safety standards, no minimum wage, no concept of workers' rights. So what happened? Institutions adapted. Labor laws were created, unions formed, governments developed regulatory frameworks for workplace safety, fair wages, maximum hours, and it took decades and enormous social upheaval. But eventually, the system caught up to the technology. Then the internet. When it first exploded in the 90s, there were almost no laws governing it. No one knew how to regulate online commerce, digital privacy, intellectual property in cyberspace, and governments were drafting policies for a world that was changing faster than they could legislate. And we are still catching up. Data privacy regulations like GDPR only came into force in 2018, decades after the internet became integral to daily life. And we are still figuring out how to handle misinformation, algorithmic bias, and platform accountability. The pattern is clear. Every major technological shift forces institutional redesign, not because institutions are bad, but because they are designed for the problems of their time. And when the problems change, the systems designed to solve them become misaligned. Here's the critical insight: institutions failing to adapt don't cause collapse, they cause misalignment. What does it mean? It means a system designed to protect society and start slowing it down instead. Regulations built for 20th century industries start blocking 21st century innovation. Education system designed to produce factory workers keep producing factory workers when we need creative problem solvers. Tax structures built around permanent employment struggle with gig work and automation. The institutions themselves aren't wrong. They're just managing a world that no longer exists. And this is where AI creates urgent pressure because the speed of change isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. The time between a technology emerging and that technology fundamentally reshaping society is shrinking. We used to have generations to adapt, but now we have years, which means our institutions need to accelerate too. This isn't about tearing everything down. It's about recognizing that if the problems we face are moving faster, the systems we use to manage them need to be more adaptive, more responsive, and more capable of iteration. Think about how technology companies operate. They don't release a final, perfect product. They release something, gather feedback, iterate, improve, and release again. It's a continuous cycle of adaptation. Now think about how governments operate. Policies are drafted, debated for years, passed, and then remain relatively static until they are dramatically reformed or replaced. There's almost no mechanism for continuous iteration. That works fine when the world changes slowly. It doesn't work when the world changes constantly. So, what needs to evolve? Regulations need to become more agile. Frameworks that set principles and can adapt quickly rather than rigid rules that take years to change. Education needs to become more dynamic, teaching people how to learn and adapt rather than memorizing information that might be outdated in 5 years. Governance needs to become more responsive. Systems that can incorporate new data, test policies, and adjust course without requiring complete institutional overhaul. This is the real challenge of the AI era. Not that machines will replace us, but that our institutions, the frameworks we use to organize society, need to catch up to the pace of change. Humans adapt naturally. We are incredibly good at it. We find new roles, learn new skills, and create new opportunities. But institutions adapt slowly. They are designed for stability, not flexibility. And that lag is where the friction happens. The next decade is about closing that gap. It's about building systems that can evolve as fast as the problems they are designed to solve. So let's bring this back to where we started. All of this has happened before: the fear, the resistance, the disruption, the adaptation, and it's the same pattern, different technology. And every single time we have worried that this time would be different, that this time we'd really broken something irreplaceable. So let's bring this back to where we started. All of this has happened before: the fear, the resistance, the disruption, and the adaptation. It's the same pattern, different technology. And every single time we have worried that this time would be different, that this time we'd really broken something we can't fix. And every time we were both right and wrong. Yes, things broke. Yes, people suffered during that transition. Yes, the world changed in ways that made the old rules obsolete. But we didn't disappear. We adapted. We found new ways to be useful, new problems to solve, new systems to build. AI is another chapter in the long story. It's not the end of human relevance. It's the beginning of a new phase where our role shifts once again. The question isn't whether humans have a place in an automated world. Of course we do. The question is whether our institutions can evolve fast enough to support us during that transition. Can our education systems prepare people for a world of continuous adaptation? Can our governments regulate emerging technology without stifling innovation? Can our economic models account for new forms of value creation? Can our social structures handle rapid change without fragmenting? There are the real challenges, not the technology itself, but our collective capacity to build systems that can keep up with it. And here's the hopeful part: we have done this before. We have rebuilt legal frameworks, reformed education, restructured economies, redefined what work means, and it wasn't easy and it wasn't fast, but we did it. The difference now is the speed. We need to learn how to do in years what used to take decades. We need institutions that are as adaptive as the people they serve. That's not a technology problem, it's a design problem. And design problems can be solved. So instead of asking, will AI replace us? Maybe the better question is, are we building the systems we need for the world we are creating? Because the tools will keep advancing, the problems will keep evolving, and the only question that really matters is whether we are building frameworks that can evolve with them. So, here at Collab AI Lab, we are not just watching history repeat, we are learning how to build the next chapter. So, share this podcast with one friend and subscribe for more. Until next time, bye.